Long ago, in the dim and distant past of 1996, there was a little disaster film. By that I mean a film about a disaster, not a film that was a disaster, by the name of Twister, starring the late, great Bill Paxton and the still kicking Helen Hunt. Now, some would say it was a bit of a flop in theaters, but others would say it really didn't belong in theaters because in the home market, it shined. Especially when it would come out on TV. Back when movies would be cut for time and a little bit of content and then slapped on a TV channel. This is where I fell in love with this film. And honestly, it was just so 90s. It had 90s tech, it had 90s effects, it had 90s actors, it had 90s character. It and Independence Day were the 90s disaster films that are in the American culture zeitgeist. Now, decades later, they made a sequel. And you would think a sequel based on a film that wasn't exactly well regarded in theaters would totally flop. Well, you're wrong. Because this film was awesome. Twisters, the long-awaited sequel, well, not expected, but still long-awaited sequel to the 96 cult following film, has a young storm chaser played by Daisy Edgar Jones. Now, at first I thought she was related to Paxton Hunt's characters, like their daughter, but no, she's just another wunderkind who can predict the weather, who's in tune with the weather force. And she's basically a storm chaser and uses tech that I guess she got from Paxton Hunt's characters, because, well, with Paxton gone, Hunt decided not to show up for a cameo. But you know who did show up? One of the weather monitoring devices from the first film. If you've seen it, you'll know it when you see it. And it's a welcome sight. Anyway, after a disastrous experiment, she, like Paxton's character, is out of the game. Only one of her surviving friends is asking for help to try and predict storms better. Because even though it's been years, things have gotten worse. And it's up to Jones's character to help things along. Now, they've flipped the script, basically, as she's working with financially backed professionals who in the previous film were the bad guys. And now, the cowboy storm chasers, led by a character played by Glenn Powell, are her adversaries. But it's not quite as cartoonish as the first film. They're very civil. They give all the characters depth, heroes and villains alike, and the line between that distinction actually blurs a bit in places, until it's revealed who really is the villain. In which case, yeah, it was a pretty satisfying end. Not quite as grandiose as the end of the first villain, but still satisfying. Because the real villains are the tornadoes. And man, do those twisters look good. I mean, some of the scenes were a bit obvious CGI, and you could tell that they were played up for effect, but for the most part, it looked like I was actually staring at footage of real tornadoes. Now, I've seen footage of real tornadoes on the Weather Channel, so yeah. And the whole time, you feel like you're actually inside the danger zone of these monstrous whirlwinds. And honestly, The Wizard of Oz didn't give whirlwinds credit enough, because these things are still terrifying because they're real. They are real monsters that kill without mercy or discrimination. And sometimes you do feel like it's chasing after you, when really the wind's just shifted wrong and you're posed. But still, the efforts of both teams are both suspenseful and satisfying at the end. And if you enjoyed the character dynamics and visual effects of the first film, then this film is a truly satisfying sequel to one of the more underrated classics of one of the greatest decades of human history. The other great decade being the 80s, of course. So yeah, to put it bluntly, despite all the blowing in the film does not blow. This is Mitchell J signing out and reminding you, storm chasers don't just chase storms for kicks. They do their darndest to make the world a little safer for the average citizen when nature decides she's going on a killing spree. Watch the skies, folks, and try to stay out of the rain and the wind.